Hey there, I'm Lance and I'm a gamer.
And I'm Sam and I'm a non-gamer.
And we are Love to Hate, where we try to help gamers find great games to play with non-gamers.
And today we're taking a look at Splendor Duel by Space Cowboys.
So, Sam, Splendor, a game that you love.
Yes.
A game that I love as well. Well, this is Splendor Duel. You want to guess how many people can play this? 2. This is Splendor Duel. It is not two-player Splendor, it is Splendor Duel. But this is exactly that. It is Splendor for 2 players. It has some new concepts to it, a new idea about how you are able to get your gem tokens to purchase the cards, but still at its core, it is Splendor, and it will be very familiar to all of you out there that have played Splendor before. Let me show you how it works down below, and then we'll come back and share thoughts on it as a gamer and non-gamer.
All right, here's Splendor Duel on the table. Let me show you guys how this 2-player version of Splendor works. Now, in this, you're going to see some very familiar things to regular Splendor if you are familiar with that game. And I'm going to assume that if you're watching this video, you do know the rules for regular Splendor, as I'm not going to cover those concepts. I am just going to cover what is different with Splendor Duel here. So if you're not familiar with Splendor rules, go ahead and watch a video on that and then come back to this video. So with this, the new components that you have, obviously this board down here is completely different. You can see some of the same gem tokens. These are still chips, clay chips, as like they were in regular Splendor. But we do have a new type here, and this is a pearl. And there are only 2 pearls in the game. Anyhow, all of the chips that are in the game start off on this board. So there are 25 chips, and you put them on this 5x5 grid here. You do have some other new cards here, and the board that tells you the winning conditions: the first to 20 points, the first to 10 crowns, or the first to get 10 points in one specific color. You do have 3 of these privilege tokens here, and you have a cloth bag that you will be putting the chips into when you spend them, and when you refill this board, you draw from the bag. So those are the components with this game. Obviously, you have your regular Splendor cards, and I shouldn't say they're regular because there are some new changes with the cards as well. Some cards are going to have ability icons on them when you purchase them, and some of the cards are going to have crowns on them. And the crowns are important because, as I already mentioned, they are a way to win the game. If you can get 10 crowns, you are going to win the game. The crowns will also play a factor on these cards over here. When you get 3 crowns, you are allowed to draft one of these people over here. They're worth victory points as well as the bonuses on them. And when you get 6 crowns, as you can see denoted down here, 3 crowns the first time, 6 crowns the second time, you are able to draft a second person over here. These are first come, first serve. And so those are the changes with the components now. How does a round work? Well, in this game, you and one other player, this is specifically for 2 players, you are going to take turns drafting tokens, buying cards, trying to get the win condition, and the first to do so is going to win the game. On your turn, you have a choice to make. You can draft 3 gems from this board. They have to be up to 3 gems. They have to be in a straight line. So I could take these 3 gems right here, or I could take these 2, or just 1. I could take these 3 right here, or I could take it in a vertical line. I could go 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I could not draft this way. You cannot draft the gold gems. You can draft the pearls, though. So for instance, maybe I do this, and I take these 3 right here, and they would be set off to my side for me to use to purchase a card on a later round. The next player, maybe they want to take these 3 here. You can draft vertically, and you get the idea. Now, if you were to draft both of the pearls on your turn, then your opponent is going to gain one of these privileges. If you were to request to fill the board, so the board is not going to refill at any point unless you want to give your opponent one of the privileges that are over here, and that would then refill the board. As you can see, there is a line that spirals around this board here, and that is the order that you would refill. You'd start here and then go around the board, refilling any empty spots. Also, if you were ever to draft 3 of the same chips, so for instance, let's say that I were to do this number here, drafting these 3 reds, then that would give my opponent one of the privileges. Now, Spending a privilege to refill the board does not count as your action. That is a free thing that you can do. You can also spend a privilege to take any one token off the board. So maybe I want to spend this and I just take the pearl off the board. You can do that as well. Now, what you're doing with these chips are just like regular Splendor rules. Again, I'm not going to explain that in too many details, but as an action, you can, instead of drafting chips, you can take something from the market up here, spending the resources down below, and taking that card and putting it onto your side of the playing field. Now, obviously, there are still victory points and still gems on the cards that count as chips, permanent chips. There are also cards in here that are going to give you special abilities, as I've already mentioned. So this type of ability here, when you take this type of card, it's just going to let you immediately take another turn. This card right here is going to count as any gem. So when you purchase this card, it does not have a gem attached to it, but you slot it onto one of your spots. You know, as you keep these cards in color order over here. So if I had a green already and I put this card on top of it, it counts as another green. Now I cannot switch this. It's going to be green for the rest of the game, but I can pick what color I want it to be. There are other abilities on the cards. This one here would let me take one of the privileges. This one here lets me steal a gem token from the other player, and it can be any one. So I could take the pearl token. And then this one here, this is going to allow me to take the same type of gem as the card is from the drafting board. So if I were to gain this card, paying the resources in the bottom corner, putting it on my side, then I'm going to get to take another black tokens off the board. Now, if there were no black tokens on the board here, I would just be out of luck. That would do me no good. Another action that you can do is to reserve a card. You take one of the gem tokens off the board, and you can take one of these cards into hand. And you're not playing this to your playing area. You are just holding this in your hand. It's not going to be worth anything for you until you pay the resources to play it into your area. It's also not a penalty for you if you never complete this card. And the gold token is wild. It can be used as any one of the other resources, including a pearl. And those are the things you are going to be doing on your turn. Again, you are playing cards to your playing area, trying to get 20 points, points being the numbers here in the top left corner, or 10 crowns, or 10 points in all the same color. So for instance, I have 1 point here in the white gem. If I could get 9 other points specifically on white gems, I would win the game. The first player to do that is going to be the winner, and that is how you play Splendor Duel. Let's go back up top and share our thoughts on this one.
And we're back, and now we're going to share our thoughts on Splendor Duel from a gamer and non-gamer's perspective. So Sam, real quick, let's just share with the folks, what do you like about Splendor so much? Why is it maybe your favorite game?
It is my favorite game. I will play Splendor at any time.
Okay.
Anybody.
If there was anything out there that would make you a lover of board games, it might be Splendor.
Yes,
okay.
Splendor and Azul. Those are my two gateway games.
All right.
But Splendor is something that it was my first experience with. I don't know how you would describe it. The strategy of building on top of each other, adding the cards add to the top.
So like a little bit of tableau building and using what you've gained in previous rounds to help you gain more.
And I really enjoy that. We have played other games since Splendor that I do enjoy that mechanic. But it was my first time with that in Splendor years ago. And the feeling, the heart racing, like near the end where you know how many points you have, but you're kind of trying to hide it.
And you don't want people to notice, so you're kind of like leaning over your cards
which I
a little
do
bit.
every time.
Yeah.
And I win every time.
Oh, come on.
I do not know if Lance has beat me in Splendor in a very long time.
I will agree. It's been a minute. But so this is a different kind of Splendor, and there's been other Splendors before. So there's been Splendor, Marvel Splendor, which I've really enjoyed.
Yes,
I like that one.
That's like my two favorite things.
Well, this is completely different thing here, because now we've pared it down to only two players in this game, and you throw in a different way to get the tiles, the chips that you use to get the cards here, and it's a drafting style, and on top of that, you're only allowed to take 3 that are in a straight line. and up to 3, excuse me.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of playing this drafting game, mini game that ties directly into how you get your cards like you normally would with regular Splendor. So let me ask you, what did you, as a non-gamer, think about this being tacked on? Having to work for your gems?
I think if I would have never played Splendor, which you do not have to have played Splendor to play Splendor Duel, I wouldn't have minded. I've played drafting games before. The idea is very simple.
Sure.
You're getting what you need. It's just how you get those. But having played Splendor and it being so high on my list, I don't know if I feel like they were trying to reinvent the wheel a little bit.
I think I know what you mean, because it sort of feels like how I said it earlier. It feels like you're working for your chips, which you were just freely given in the previous game.
Yes.
And what I mean by that, in the previous game, you just picked from what was available to you. So long as it was in the market, you could choose.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, you can only take what's on the board, and if it's in a straight line. And so there's some obstacles preventing you from being able to take exactly what you want.
It does make it a little bit more challenging, which as a non-gamer, it's not necessarily what I'm looking for a game that I've already played a form of. I'm not looking necessarily to make it more difficult, but I do understand the idea and how, as a gamer, I think with Splendor, I really have to. Am I really a non-gamer with this game, because I do enjoy it so much and I have played it so much. It does kind of add something to a game you've played before. Yeah,
I will say what I think I enjoy a lot about the drafting aspect of it being added into this game, and the fact that it's a duel game, a 2-player game. There's definitely this little game behind the game that's going on between the 2 players of, I don't want to be the person that resets the board.
Yeah.
I don't want to give you that privilege that you can use on a later round. I don't want to give you that benefit. So you're trying to lengthen out all of your actions. You're trying to slow play it a little bit to not have to be the person to reset the board.
Yeah.
Because if you reset the board, you're giving the other person a huge advantage of being able to see, well, now I've got all these other options in front of me, and I can take this, this, and that, and deplete a good part of the board before it comes back to me again. There's that little mini game kind of going on behind it, and that's fun. I enjoy that aspect, but I'm a gamer, and I think that's something that
I was just annoyed.
Exactly. That's not something that you find enjoyment out of. Whereas for me, I'm enjoying that aspect while I'm still playing Splendor.
I'm like, well, you just give in and reset the board. I'm
not. Now, I do want to talk about in this video at some point the aspect of dual games where You've got your original game that's been around for years and years and years, and it's famous and it's done well, and now we're going to turn it into a 2-player duel version. I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
I like that. What do you think?
I think it could go either way. I think you, as a gamer who plays games with me but also goes off and plays with other people, I only pretty much play with Lance. Every game I play is a duel.
Right.
And so it's not really changing much for me. It's just changing the rules of something I've played before. But for somebody and other people who go off and play games with lots of people and want that smaller version for one-on-one games, I understand.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's perfect. I think most people play board games in a 2-player format. Now, I know there's going to be lots of people out there, I only play in 3 or 4 or whatever. Sure, but there's a lot of people that only ever get to play with one other person.
Yeah.
And these type of games are fantastic for that. I think there needs to be more of them. I think that it's something that could probably work for almost any big game. Terraforming Mars Duel or Everdell Duel or whatever. I think that's an idea that needs to be explored. I think it's a really cool concept. All right, so let's get into our pros and cons for Splendor Duel. You, as a non-gamer, what works really well for you with this game?
I mean, at the heart of it, it's still Splendor. You're still building that engine. You're still getting those resources. Is it engine building, kind of?
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
And ultimately getting that point, which in this is 20. And so it's still...
Or 10 crowns or 10 in the same one color,
It's still Splendor. So it still is a very fun game to me. It's not a game that you have to know a whole lot of. I mean, yeah, there's definitely some strategy. You have to figure out, like, I can go for this one or this one. What's going to get me ultimately to what my end goal is.
Yeah.
But I think it's really the beginning of that strategy mindset, and I think that's really good for non-gamers to figure out. So it is Splendor. I think that I do like that it comes in a smaller, box.
Yeah.
It's easier to, again, we travel a lot, we camp a lot. We take specific games with us over and over again. This is probably one, we have Splendor for the house. This is one that we can travel with. So I really do like that aspect of it. And, it is different. It does add something. What's it called again? The drafting aspect of it. So it's adds something unique to a game that I like.
Yeah. What I'll throw out there for the things I like about Splendor Duel is that it doesn't, like Sam just said, it's different, it's unique. It doesn't feel like an expansion to Splendor. It feels like a different game. It also feels like this is designed so that it will only work at a 2-player count, and I love the fact that that's that, because it's Splendor Duel. It needs to be a good head-to-head 2-player game, and it's designed specifically to do that, and it works. It works real well for a 2-player head-to-head back and forth. What maybe doesn't work so great for you?
No, I think after we played our first game of Splendor Duel, Lance went back and looked at the cards, but I had an issue with the Pearl. That was a new gem that's not in Splendor, and I felt like as limited as it was on the board and how difficult it was to get what you wanted from the board, it shouldn't have been on as many cards as it was on.
Yeah.
And we kind of went back and forth on this after the game. I think we got drafted all the cards with the Pearl. I think a lot of them were left in the deck that didn't have them. And so maybe it would have been a different outcome if we just have shuffled a little bit better or something.
Well, what Sam's referring to there, I did go back and look at the decks, and the number of pearls required to get the cards, it is heavily skewed towards the 2 and 3 decks. That their majority of those cards do have pearls on them, whereas in deck 1, majority don't. And so you are getting a lot of good cards in the first deck that don't have to have pearls on them. But once you've got your little base there, most everything is going to require pearls. And there's only 2 in the entire game, 2 pearl gem chips.
Yeah.
And so...
and it is, you are able to get both of them.
You definitely
leaving the other
can.
person with none and not able to get any cards.
But I will say there are workarounds. I mean, the gold does apply as a pearl, so you can use gold as a pearl. There are some cards that allow you to take gems from the other player. However, that's not always something that leaves people feeling great.
That's for a gamer and a gamer, not a gamer and a non-gamer.
But no, I will agree with Sam. It is a more it is a slower game. Splendor Duel feels to me like it is a slower game. Like you are working through the beginning part of the game slower than in original Splendor, because you do have
I feel like I didn't move up the ranks as fast as with Splendor.
Yeah, I will agree with that. Yeah. Anything else maybe stick out to you in not a great way?
No, I think that was, I feel like I'm bashing on it. I think it's, Splendor is my favorite game, so don't come at me trying to mess it up. But it's still a good game. It's a good game. I enjoyed playing it. I would play it again. It's not taking Splendor's place in my heart, but it's still a really good game.
Okay.
So.
All right, so let's get to our score for Splendor Duel. Scale of 1 to 10, love to hate. Where does it come in?
I'd probably give it a 7.6.
Okay, you're still decently high on it.
It's still a high game. I do feel like my review is coming off more negative than I actually felt.
It is still Splendor.
Yeah, so.
Okay. I agree with what you said earlier about if you haven't ever played Splendor, maybe start with this first. Because, just how unique and different it is from original Splendor, but yet it still feels like Splendor. I really like this one. I love that it's a 2-player game, and it's a 2-player game that makes me feel like we're kind of playing this back and forth game. And I like that. I like that it really kind of works that well at 2 players. you know, I keep saying this. I feel like I've said this too many times in videos here recently. I feel like this is going to make a top 10 video at the end of the year.
You can only have 10.
I know, I can only have 10. I'm probably already said it about 20 times. But no, this is a fantastic game. I can't recommend it enough, especially if you're somebody out there looking for a good 2-player game. This might be the best 2-player game that has come out this year, in my opinion. So yeah, no, for me, I'm going to say that this is probably an 8.4. I like it a lot. One that I think we will be taking with us when we go out and about and traveling and camping, because it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. And that's another good thing. Splendor does take up a lot of space. Original Splendor does, because you got to lay out all these cards out. This doesn't take up as much space, I feel like. So, and it's a much smaller box. So. Well, there you have it. That's our thoughts on Splendor Duel. It is from Space Cowboys. Leave us some comments down below. Let us know what you think about this one.
Make sure to like and subscribe and push that bell button so you get notifications of all our new content.
I'm Lance.
I'm Sam.
And we are Love to Hate, where we try to bridge the gap between gamers and non-gamers. We'll catch you next time.